Taos in Baltimore, and the Pittsburgh Penguins will be playing Game 5 in Pittsburgh. And it turns out U2's going to be in Pittsburgh on Wednesday night, too. This guy is busy up there in the Steel City, where I left him about 3.5 weeks ago with my broken Rock the Red Heart. We welcome Will Graves, a Marylander, back onto the program. He covers all things Pittsburgh sports. We don't hold that against him for the Associated Press. His work appears at WNST.net. Often, he is Will Graves AP on Twitter. And, dude, are you worn out, or are you all right? I mean, you resting comfortably there right now?
I'm pretty worn out. I got a serious tooth issue that's going to put my dentist kids through college.
Ooh.
So, yeah, and I'm in a fair amount of pain. The painkillers are also wearing off as we speak right now. So, if I sound a little bit angrier than usual, that's probably why.
Well, Will, one thing that probably could make things easier is if the Penguins lose here, there won't be a parade for you to cover this weekend, right?
I mean, I just want it to be over. I'll be honest with you. It's just, I mean, again, as I pointed out, after the Pens lost Game 4, we're back to talking about the goalies, and we've been talking about the goalies since camp started, and I'm just tired of talking about it. I mean, how about maybe we talk about the fact that the highest scoring offense in hockey, the one that made Pekka Rinne look like a fool in games 1 and 2, has now got 2 goals in 6 periods. That's not going to do it. So no matter how good the goaltending is. So, the Pens have got some issues going forward. I mean, I still think they have the advantage. They have the experience. They seem to find a way every time they're pushed, as we saw, against the Caps, as we saw against the Senators. And I
wouldn't bet against them. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, I don't like the way they've looked the last couple of games, but I still I don't think we're out of the woods yet, as I have my Predators jersey behind me, Will.
Well, I mean, I think when the series started, I figured it was going to go 7, just because Nashville is really good in their building. And that's what we've seen. I think it's going to be I think the best chance for the Predators, if the Predators win Game 5, I believe they can win the series, but I don't see any way that, if they have to come back to Pittsburgh for Game 7, that they can find a way to get it done. The Pens seem to have this ability to respond, and I think we'll see it again, but, it doesn't matter. At this point, it's 2 months of the playoffs now, and I'm just sort of like, can we just...
It feels like it ended for me a long time ago, right? I mean, it feels like, wow, that Caps thing, I went to Toronto and 2 trips to Pittsburgh and Tomlin. It was like 3 months ago. Right now, it's like a month ago and 3 weeks ago, and you've had it every other night from then forward. I mean, that's what makes it fun, but it also is, you're glad when it's over, whenever it's over. It's June.
Yeah, and I'll be, to speak perfectly selfishly, I mean, this is the slowest time of year for me. The time between the end of the hockey playoffs and the start of training camp is really the only real downtime I have all year, and so this is kind of cutting into it. I'm a little but that's just people always ask, Will, who are you rooting for? I always root for no overtimes, and I root for the path of least resistance, and unfortunately with the Pens, it's in the path of most resistance. And hey, it's great. They win the cup. I can say, hey, I covered a dynasty, which is hard to do in the NHL these days. They have 3 cups in 7 years or 8 years or whatever it is. But, I think that they will find a way. And the Pirates, as you mentioned, I mean, they're coming into Baltimore. They're just sort of having a season. I mean, there's nothing really going on there. The only reason they're even in the mix in the Central is because the whole division at the moment is terrible. But I anticipate the Cubs will go on some 20-5 run at some point, and then that'll be that.
That's exactly what I said. I said the Cubs will win 20 out of 25 at some point. It's just a matter of when that is, but I don't know when their pitching is going to get together. I want to stay on hockey for a minute, Will, because Will Graves joining us here from Pittsburgh in the Associated Press, one of our frequent visitors here anytime we get together and renew this bloodbath war thing through Breezewood and Somerset and all those places that I drove back and forth from last month. On the hockey side, from the Pittsburgh side of it, and I sensed your fatigue with all of it, I was kind of blown away by how much civic pride there was in the Penguins. And maybe I'm just naive to it. And look, dude, I come in and out of Pittsburgh usually for less than 24 hours, especially when we play these night games up there every year as we do football-wise. And they're always at Christmas, and they're always in and out. And it's, I don't hang out in Pittsburgh 3 or 4 days. I hung out in Pittsburgh for 4 days between games 3 and 4. I hung out there, all evening with Mike Tomlin in game 6. And I just sense, I don't want to say I thought the Penguins were the stepchild there, but I mean, there's a real sense of something there going back to Lemieux, and it's kind of special, man, from the outside, and what they're doing right now is kind of special. And I don't know if they're going to win or lose. I mean, hell, you know, I'm rooting against them. I mean, you know that much, but boy, to be in the middle of it and to see what Nashville is, and I know you haven't been down there for this, and I sort of came into this a bit of a Preds fan through Barry Trotz and, you know, all the years of going down there, and there really was a nice vibe for the Predators, even when they weren't this. But this has been a really cool Stanley Cup final, I think, all the way around for both communities.
Well, I mean, I certainly think for the Preds, you know, much like the Caps in '98, I mean, it's anytime you have a first time through, there's going to be a certain factor. The Penguins, yeah, I mean, I think there is a large swath of support, but you know, I'm gonna, if you allow me to get on my soapbox for a minute. I also think they're front runners in a way too. I mean, look, they've been blessed with 4 of the best 15 hockey players of the last 25 years, and from Lemieux to Jagr to Malkin and Crosby, and really 4 of the top 100 players of all time. I mean, there was a stretch when after Jagr got traded to the Caps, that they kind of went in the tank. They were going to leave. Nobody showed up at the games. So they're not
they were going to go to Nashville, right? I mean, that you weren't covering it then, but they were the first team, yeah?
Kansas City was definitely in the mix there. But, you know, the flip side of that is this is the same, you know, look, they booed the Pens in Game 6 against the Caps, which I thought was just sort of, I mean, they did not play well in that one game, but to me, I thought they would have had a little more patience. You know, I mean, there's a little spoil when they don't pour 4 goals in a period. Everybody kind of goes, "What's going on?" So I want to say they've been spoiled. They have, as I often point out on Twitter, much to the people adding me with a lot of hatred, a lot of venom. I mean, they have 1% hockey problems. Okay, I mean, if they collapse in there, if they don't win this series, you know, it will be viewed as an upset. But I mean, what other franchise would you rather trade places with in the NHL? I can't think of any at the moment. So there is a lot of civic pride, but a lot of that is tied into the fact that they're really good and they've been really lucky to have, you know, be blessed with such great talent to go and watch 40 times a year, 50 times a year for most of the last quarter century. So that helps. So there is a lot of pride, but I can also tell you that, you know, they had. You know, they sort of became Braves like the Braves of the 90s and the early 2000s, where they were in it every year and then they kind of lose in the playoffs when they went through that little swoon there where they lost to the lower seeded teams 5 straight years, and then Mike Johnson was 1 and done, or 1.5 and done, I guess, as head coach. I mean, there was a waning process there. So, yes, it is special, but I think it's special because they're winning and people want to root for a winner here. I mean, it's the city of champions, as they like to say. There is great support. I'm not dissing them. I'm not dissing the fan base, but I do think that they're not as special as they think they are.
Spoken like a true Marylander, he is Will Graves, AP, out on Twitter. I knew I'd make him laugh and get him all feisty here. He's got a toothache, he's got a hockey ache, he's got a baseball heartache, and it's not even football season, you know, at this point. You know, the last thing on hockey for you, you said you didn't want to talk about the goalies, but we're going to have to talk about the goalies because the most unusual part of all of this is there is no Roy, there is no Brodeur, there is no Hasek. You know, there is this slippery slope that usually when you say you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none, right?
Right.
And they have 2 pretty good goalies, and I guess it's, you know, whichever night the oil is running hot. I don't know what to say, but it's very, very strange that they're 2 victories away from winning another Stanley Cup, and they really don't even know who their goalie is, right? Well,
I mean, I think we do in the long term. I mean, Matt Murray is the guy going forward. Marc-Andre Fleury is still can be an elite goaltender. I mean, heck, what did he do against the?
Yeah, he was so last month, right? He was so May, right? Exactly.
But you know, he's due $7 million or $6 million next season, and Murray signed a contract where the pay increase starts next season. You can't pay your goalies the combined $10 million. You just can't. So Murray is the future, and he is Mike Sullivan's guy. Much to everybody's. I mean, Fleury, I thought, had one shaky start against Ottawa in Game 3. He had played so well. I mean, really, literally, the single biggest reason they beat the Capitals. He has one bad game, and he went right to Murray that to me is I would imagine that he will stick with Murray, barring an 8-0 shellacking at this point, because not only is he the present, he is the future, and I don't think there isn't any significant gap. The sort of the thing that's different in the mix here is that Fleury has, A, he's been here 13 years, and B, he is one of the most genuine, and he is, I can say this, I've been doing this long enough to say, he is one of the more beloved athletes in a specific town that I have ever seen. I mean, people love him because he is such a genuine person, because he is, when they were really bad. I mean, when we started that rebuild process, I mean, really, Fleury was the first guy they took. And then they took Crosby, and then they took Malkin. So he really was sort of the guy that has been through the fires. I mean, it was really, really bad when things started here for him.
Well, and he's a lifer, man. He was playing in Wilkes-Barre, as I remember.
Yeah,
I saw him play in Hershey 20 years ago.
You're talking about a former number one pick and really a guy, but, let's be honest. I mean, when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2013, he had a horrific playoff, and they went to, oh my gosh, I can't remember Thomas Vakoun in the Eastern Conference Finals, because he had problems. He had problems at the end of the 14 playoffs, and they stopped scoring for him. They were so banged up in 15, his play didn't even really matter. But he has sort of reinvented himself, this year in terms of his ability to deliver in the playoffs. And there's a lot of a lot of people are attached to him, not just because of the way he plays, but because of sort of his relationship with the city.
That's fascinating, dude, that you would say that, because like that, I just learned something. Because when I think of Pittsburgh, I think of Cowher and Tomlin and Ward and Roethlisberger and Bettis and, all of those characters. I mean, when I think of the Pirates, I think of McCutchen, and he's going to be gone in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, it feels like, right? So,
right.
The fact that this guy survived all of that, along with Crosby and sort of that core, yeah, I guess there are some heartstrings there that I don't feel from the outside, because I have no association to it,
I mean, I think if you did a poll of Penguin fans, I think that there is it is a minority, but it is a very hardcore minority. I think they would be fine if the Penguins lost the cup with Fleury playing brilliantly rather than them winning the cup with Murray and Net. I'm not saying it's a lot of people, but I'm saying it is a very vocal and very, hardcore minority that certainly believes that he has built up that level of goodwill with the fans.
He is Will Graves. We're going to get to some baseball here. The Pirates are in Baltimore. Dude, I didn't even call you to talk hockey. I had sort of forgotten the Penguins were in the Stanley Cup Finals, but I've been trying to forget that for about 3 weeks now. And baseball-wise, I've been up in Pittsburgh the last couple of years, obviously on my tour. Before that, I was up there right in the beginning of when it got good, like in 11, 12. I was actually after the John Ogden induction in the Hall of Fame. I stopped there and saw an afternoon game. First game I ever saw at PNC Park. The place was packed. They were giving away Alvarez throwback jerseys. And really from that period of time, this 5-year period, much like Baltimore, much like Kansas City, where all three of these teams were garbage for the better part of a decade and a half, that it got rejuvenated, but it feels like it's at the end. And this has been the strangest year, where you have this Korean kid who can't stop drinking and driving and can't get back into the country, who was supposed to be your cleanup hitter, and then you have an outfielder get popped a week and a half into the season for an 80-game suspension when he's supposed to be a team leader. Your MVP, the guy I think of the leader as the leader, is about to get dealt away, and I don't even know if they're going to keep Kohler or these guys around. I mean, this is really a little bit of a shaky situation for the Pirates and a slippery slope at a time where they finally built something up other than we have the ballpark and we have those crazy sandwiches with coleslaw and french fries and bad beer. I might throw that in there too. But but they've had good baseball there, and I don't know how this is going to go, because it certainly feels like this is a limping version of a team coming in here. And as you've pointed out, the Cubs have made this thing interesting, but it feels like at some point the talent's going to win out there. And I don't know that the Pirates have the talent right now.
They don't. And they're running. You see it's happening with Kansas City. It happened with Tampa Bay about 3 or 4 years ago, where you realize, hey, we're a smaller market, so we've got to place a premium on playing our guys young, developing them, and riding them as long as we can. And then when they become too expensive, we go and get the next wave coming. Well, what's happened is, the Pirates are sort of in this in-between spot, and to be honest, they don't really have a next wave at this point. They've got some decent prospects in the pipeline, but nobody on the lines of a McCutchen, a Neil Walker, a Starling Marte, a Garrett Cole, even a Jamison Tyon. So that's sort of where they're at, and they can't afford to keep their guys. I mean, I think it's a problem in Kansas City. Those guys are talking about, hey, we know we're sort of like, at the tail end of this thing. I remember talking to Omar Minaya 2 years ago on a story when I was working about are the Pirates going to sustain this, and he said, look, when you start, you've got a 6 to 8 year window. And when you look at where Neil Huntington started in 2007, I mean, 6 to 8 years was 13 through 15. They had the second best record in baseball over that stretch, so behind the Cardinals. So they cannot, and they said, hey, we were committed. I talked to Neil Huntington at length, Bob Nutting, the owner, at length about this. We are committed. We know we're going to lose some guys, but we're going to try to keep our most important guys. And that's really, the writing was on the wall for me when they didn't, 2 years ago, they went to arbitration with Neil Walker, a Pittsburgh kid, as important civically, if not baseball standpoint, as McCutchen has been to the franchise. They were $1 million apart in arbitration. Neil was willing to meet in the middle. The Pirates went to arbitration over saving $500,000, which by baseball standards is nothing.
Which is a lot of bad blood for 500. Really, that's a $500,000 of bad blood, and I think we know that through baseball all the way around. I mean, in the case of McCutchen, what's going on to him on the field, right? I mean, that's you've got a guy who's really a diminished player right now, and very, very rapidly, quite frankly.
And it is. I mean, look, I understand that Neil Huntington on his tombstone, it's going to read, "We will never pay future salary based on past results," which is why he is, Andrew McCutchen, even a diminished version of Andrew McCutchen on the open market is probably worth $10 to $12 million. There is no way they're going to pay him that. His club option next year is $14.5. There's no way they're going to pay him that. Their hope is that they bumped him down to 6. The bat has started to come around in the last couple of weeks. When I say that, I think he's batting 225 now, and he's down at 206 a couple weeks ago. They need him to bump his value up so they can get something in return, or they have to do what they did with Liriano last year, which seems unfathomable, where not only did they send Liriano out in a salary dump, they also sent a couple of prospects just to get rid of him, like an NBA contract when you got a bad contract situation. So it is tough to see, especially with what the Cubs have the best of both worlds. They were bad for a while. They drafted really good players, developed them, and they have the pockets where they can keep them if they want. And that is and St. Louis also has a similar option. The Pirates do not, or at least refuse to, invest in their players that are going to cost a lot of money. I think, to me, trade McCutchen, I understand. If they traded Cole, if I was a season ticket holder, I would just light them on fire and throw them in the river. I just think that is the one that, he's still 3 years. You got team control for 3 more years. Why would you bail on him? Because you don't want to pay him $8 million next year to be the ace of your staff. Which is still a bargain by baseball standards. So,
well, Nova's also a guy that they signed that they might wind up dealing away in a couple of weeks, right?
Well, yeah. I think that they got him cheap. I remember, at the end of last year, his agent was floating something out there that he wanted $5 and $75, which was ridiculous. He ended up signing for $3 and $27, which, it's still a lot of money to you and me, but to in Major League Baseball, maybe not so much. The fans have noticed. Look, attendance is down by, about 5 to 6% over the first 2 months of the season. They had the Yankees in town in April. They didn't sell out any of the 3 games. They had the Cubs in town. They had a couple of crowds under 15,000 for the Cubs.
Well, the Penguins have won people over, right? The Penguins are where the money is. That's where the time is. They were playing every other day. When I was covering the Caps, I couldn't do Oriole games at the same time, right?
Well, no, I agree, but look, playoff tickets are expensive. I got friends that have upper concourse seats, season tickets, and they're running 180 a pop, 200 a pop, and that's for the season ticket holders. I don't think it's not that the tickets are expensive to go to the Pirates games. I think people have just said, you know what, it sucks. Do you think that they would have a little bit longer of a shelf life considering what they've done? But I think the scars of that 20 years where they were bad every year.
You don't have to tell me, dude. Our stadium's empty too, right? And we've been just as good as you guys have been. We've had a little ALCS run. The team's been decent. Right. Buck's been decent. They have star players. We have our McCutchen. We have our, we have our players. You know what I mean? But nobody's going to the games here. And
Cleveland's got the same issue. Same issue in Cleveland.
Yeah, not every city embraces the way Kansas City, just everybody ran out there and came back 2.5 million strong after they won, and they won the banana. So it's a little different, I think, when you win it than when you lose it. But there is only so much love and so much green love and so much time and so much I'm going to go downtown, and especially when the team's not very good, right? I mean, and I guess and the other part of the Pirates, dude, and I wanted to hit you on this, was we cover all the sports. You do that at the Associated Press. By the way, Will Graves joining us here from AP Pittsburgh. And, you write every year, as we do here, there's always an NFL suspension for this or that. I mean, we got Dixon out for 4 games. We had Boyle out last year. You've got the whole, drama with Martavis Bryant up there and all, Blunt and all the stuff that was going on. But on the baseball side, it's very, very unusual when a team has 2 absolute knuckleheads at the same time who are stars in their team, right? And I can't think of another team that's been taxed, on their own accord the way the Pirates have, with Marte's suspension and the Korean kid not being able to get in the country after 3 DUIs, and he can't get. I mean, that's sort of unthinkable in baseball. No one else can make that complaint, right?
Well, but the thing is, they also, this is their bet. I mean, they don't go out and spend. I mean, Marte, I believe he's one of the 5, 6 most gifted players in baseball. I don't think steroids had anything to do with it. I'll be honest with you. I mean, heck, I remember a game his rookie year when he got called up in midseason. They were fading in the second half in 2012. There was some lazy fly ball, sac fly to deep left field. He might have been a step in front of the warning track where PNC is still 360 feet from home plate, 370 feet, and he one-hopped it. The guy jogged from third and one-hopped it, and he just barely beat it. I mean, I was like, oh my God, who is this kid? But look, they said, hey, we are going. They don't have a lot of margin for error. They do not have the ability to go out and fill a hole. I mean, when you look at it has been a comedy of errors in the outfield with Marte out. The jumbling they've had to do. I mean, they had guys like John Jaso playing in right field, Adam Frazier, infield, Jose Osuna, guys that are infielders trying to play right field. They finally figured out after about a month, hey, we can't do this. They moved McCutcheon to center full time. They moved Polanco back to right field, and then at left field they've kind of made do. It's just it's been some bad luck, but the Gung thing. I mean, that Jung Ho Gung supposed to be their power guy. They knew that he had an issue once, but they didn't know he had 2. They knew he was busted once. They didn't know he was busted twice. So when he gets busted a third time, I know that his camp thought, well, look, he's a star in the States. That's really good for Korea, in the South Korea in the spotlight. It's good for the KBO where he came from to have this sort of success. Instead, the government decided to make an example of him and did not let him off. And hey, that's, you know what?
Sure.
Guy can't make good decisions. You absolutely penalize him. And there are also people in the KBO. I remember I did a story this rookie year when he started coming on, and we had somebody in our Soul Bureau talk to one of the KBO guys, and they said, we'll be honest with you, we're sort of rooting against him because if he leaves and all of our star players leave, and look what's happened with Eric Taines, I mean, that's where he came from, right? And, so maybe we don't, we're afraid of the exodus and how this is going to affect our league. So I think sort of there's politics involved there too. But this is the Pirates' decision. I mean, they didn't go out and spend money to make sure they had quality depth, and their best outfielder prospect, Austin Meadows, was hitting 210 at AAA until about a week ago when he started to come around. So they don't have the option of even replenishing within. So that's why you've got this, it's just sort of a nightmare. And then Cole's not even pitching well right now. I mean, they are. I'm not. The sky maybe isn't as black as I thought it was, just because maybe the rest of the division maybe is not that good. But I thought at the beginning of the season, 82-80 would have been a victory, and after about 2 weeks, I pushed that back to 75 and 87, and I think they'll be lucky to get to that point because there's nothing coming. There's no help coming. Marte will come back in mid to late July. Who knows what if McCutcheon's even going to be on the team then? It is. And the fact that they're, 5 games under is sort of a victory for Clint Hurdle, who also was sort of tired. Look, when he was hired, they said, hey, Clint, if we start to win, we're going to invest, and they haven't done it. I mean, they can say, our payroll is $100 million. It's the most it's ever been. They've slid from 21st to 26th to 27th in payroll. They're not paying. And I've given Neil Huntington the benefit of the doubt. He is given a budget, and he has to stay within it. This goes higher than him. It just goes to ownership not investing in high-profile guys, not being willing to pay guys to come to Pittsburgh. And unfortunately, it looks like you're right, as you mentioned before I started this rant. It does sort of feel like the end of something, and it could be, who knows, when, if, how they're going to get out of it.
I think we all worry about that in Baltimore. I know you're a recovering Orioles fan yourself as a Marylander, and you've seen it all here. I mean, the owner here had the short leash forever, then decides to go out behind his general manager and his manager's back and give Chris Davis the farm. And, Chris Davis is, on the he's not washed up, but he's got a W and an A at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it's going that way, at least. Will Graves joining us here from the Associated Press. He's Will Graves, AP, up in Pittsburgh. We've you're the guy, you're sort of like the spy we've sent up there to keep an eye on things, and I'm glad you're pooping on the Pirates here as they come in for this little short series, because I need a little bit of that after 1979, Will.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would say, look, my son, my 8-year-old, is a big, hardcore baseball guy. I mean, hardcore. And he is also a front runner. So, look, he's 4. We took him to his first Pirate game. We've been to, half a dozen as a family. We're going to one on Sunday, but he realizes, I mean, he could sniff what was coming, and so he basically wears Nats stuff all the time.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Because he loves Harper.
Oh, you're killing me. You're breaking my heart. Oh, it's bad enough to grow up in Pittsburgh, and then you're going to be a Nationals fan, too? Come on with the kid.
Well, I mean, look, there's part of me, look, I grew up an O's fan. I mean, there was no baseball in D.C. when I was a kid. However, I will say this. I mean, I respect the Lerners, because the Lerners have done sort of what the Cubs do. I mean, they develop their guys, and they go out and they pay their guys.
And they try to win. They really,
I mean,
it's
that
important
is,
to them. Yes.
To be respected. That if you're a billionaire and you've got the money, and you invested in your team, they have built their team the right way. I mean, does that mean that's not going to prevent Dusty Baker from ruining that bullpen in the playoffs? But, I mean, they are making the right move. So I sort of respect what they're doing. I can't ever say I'm going to be a fan, but, I am planning I'm going to visit my family in late June, and I'm going to take him to his first Nats game, because he couldn't go when the Nats were here. He had a school thing he had to do, so he couldn't get out of it. And I'm happy for them. I think that the much like the Caps, I think sort of the support there is 10 miles wide and in an inch deep. I think that there is some level of I mean, like, it's good that town, as only really cares about the Redskins, and everything else is sort of like something to do in between. So much like it is in a lot of NFL cities, and I think much like it is in Pittsburgh on some levels.
And in Baltimore on a lot of levels, absolutely. Hey, Will, it's great to visit with you. Take care of your tooth. Look, man, this Penguins thing will be all over with, and if we're lucky, there'll be no parade for you or me. So we will be watching here in the next couple days, and I appreciate the look at the Pirates, and I'll come bug you when it's Steelers season, and we'll fight about that in a couple months, okay?
All right, dude. Take care.
Always love having him on. He is Will Graves from the Associated Press. Will Graves, AP. He covers all things Pittsburgh sports up there, even the Panthers, although I didn't get into that, or the Steelers with him. And you can find him, of course, out at WNST.net, as well as we platform all the Associated Press work, like Dave Ginsburg earlier in the week with the new Rick Dempsey book. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. It's always $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. And hey, I don't need to tell you, it's summer. Get in the gym. Take care of yourself. Get that lunk alarm going there. You don't need to be Schwarzenegger to work out at Planet Fitness. They welcome everyone there. You can also subscribe to our WNST tech service. Now, I can't tell you it's all going to be good news, right? We had some bad news last week, decent news this week. But you always get it first. It's always brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And Dennis Kolatzos will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5 with the SSV on WNST. I am writing the Peter Principles. They have been sitting in a file for about 3.5 years now. I have blown the dust off of them. They will be coming to WNST.net all summer long. The Peter Principles, a book on the life and times and ownership of Peter Angelos, and taking a look a third-person look, quite frankly. Chapters 1, 2, 3, 12, and 13 are already out at WNST.net, and you can give those a read. But I will be filling in the blanks and flattening out the book between now and Labor Day, and I hope that you spend some portion of the summer taking a look at it, maybe reminiscing, learning, and if you're an old-school Oriole fan, it'll all come back to you. I am Nasty at WNST.net. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.